Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unanswered Questions. Sometimes during our live broadcasts, we just don't get enough time to answer all the questions from students.
A lot of times.
So we're going to answer some of the top voted questions here today for the questions in February.
Hey, let's get after it.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
First question. This is going to be for you.
All right.
Were you the previous owner of the company before your son took over? Well,
yeah, there was myself and Beth. We were kind of running the company, and now Brandon is now the CEO of the company. So he's actually my boss.
We all have equal share in the actual ownership.
That's true.
Just the roles are a bit different.
Right. But technically, with the reporting protocol, you are technically my boss now. Scary thought. Scary thought. But yes, it was Beth and I, who's Brandon's mother. She's still with the company. She does all the books. She's the smart one when it comes to the money, right?
Like, we just
spend it.
We just dress up, buy cool equipment, and and she somehow makes it all work on the books.
Exactly. Exactly.
At what point is a picture considered a nude?
That's in your wheelhouse.
Well, generally for most people, it's going to be fully naked pictures are nudes, although there are things called semi-nudes or nearly nudes. Different laws have different meanings, and sometimes images, although they may not be fully naked, can still be considered the same severity as if they were. It really does depend on how courts interpret things.
And context of the picture, right?
And the context, yes.
Yeah. You know, one of the things when it comes to law, it's not always as black and white. A lot of people think it is, right? It's all shades of gray. Context is everything.
Yeah, and I think that's mostly what lawyers do, is like most of their job is figuring out what the context is.
Correct. And if they can't, not guilty. Right.
Do you believe most students would genuinely risk speaking out against bullying victims? It seems unrealistic to me, as people may fear becoming targets themselves.
I'll answer that one. I don't disagree with the statement. It takes a lot of internal fortitude to come forward, because there is a risk that you yourself can be targeted. Having said that, the research shows that there's strength in numbers, right? Like if we can change the culture in schools where they become these upstandards rather than bystandards, then the likelihood of you now being singled out is going to drop dramatically. But is there a risk? Certainly there is a risk. Are there ways we can go about mitigating that risk? Absolutely. So.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, by not saying anything, it does give those aggressors a lot more power.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, correct. Which allows them to do it again and again and again. Like, these individuals have some of the highest recidivism rates, right? Because people just don't hold them accountable.
Yeah. If you ask someone to stop sending you explicit images of feet and they refuse, could they face legal consequences?
Well, I guess it could be harassing communications under the criminal code, right? Like, sending feet pictures in and of itself is not nudity, so there's nothing under child pornography laws or anything, but that would be considered harassing communications, in which the person could be held accountable, again, depending upon context.
Yeah.
Here in Canada, by the way, a lot of what we talk about legally is Canadian-based.
Yeah.
Because we know we have some Americans who follow us as well. So.
Yeah, and I think most states have some kind of harassment law in place.
Sure.
But
Washington State is a good example.
Yeah, it will vary depending on your local laws, but I think harassment's pretty well in the books around the world. You mentioned it permissible for a 16-year-old to be in a relationship with someone 14 or older. Close in age exception. Mm-hmm. However, if an older party is 25, wouldn't that typically be considered legal, possibly pedophilia?
If the person's 16, no, because consent can be given at the age of 16 to somebody who's even 85. Now, it's awful, but it's lawful, as some people will say, right? Now, if it's somebody under the age of 15, illegal.
Yeah.
Right? That would be illegal.
I think there's a lot of media messaging from different U.S. states and such. Like, different U.S. states will have different ages of consents, and some of those are kind of considered a default, but they're not. It does vary. City, state, not city, but province. State. That's what I'm looking for. State.
Blah, blah. You had marbles in the mouth again.
Yeah.
Mouth marbles.
It does vary depending on where you live.
Right. But here in Canada, we have one federal law applies to all provinces, which are like U.S. states and all territories, and 16 is the age of consent.
My search history shows activity that I haven't initiated. How can I prevent this and what could be causing it? Oh, so you're seeing things in your search history that you didn't intentionally do.
Because your friend's taking your phone.
I was gonna say, well, maybe someone's on your device. Now, are there certain plugins or add-ons or modifications you could have downloaded that may have been searching things without you knowing about it, like using your browser to go to certain sources? It's possible. Also, your browsing history is just a file on your computer, and you could go in there and make changes to it. So, I mean, is there a possibility your friend might be playing a prank? It could be. Could you have downloaded something that's maybe being a little bit mischievous and trying to add things? It could be. My recommendation is try a different browser, see what happens, or just reset your browser and check for any plugins that may be acting inappropriately. What should I do if I encounter someone posting hateful content about another individual?
Well, I say always report it, right? Report it to an appropriate adult, whoever that appropriate adult is, and then they'll have a look at it. What's interesting about hate speech and hate crime, I mean, there's real controversy going over that. You know, what's the difference between freedom of expression and what is hate speech? You know, that there's constant give and take and arguments going on right now, including the new Bill 63, right? The
Yeah.
Online Harm Act. So, but if you're seeing that, I would always recommend that you report it to the appropriate adult, whoever that appropriate adult is, for them to have a look at it and make a decision as to where to go there. If it's criminal in nature, then that could be forwarded to the police department to look under hate crime law, is a really good example.
Yeah, most social platforms have a reporting feature as
Right.
well. And usually that content does break their rules, although it may not break the law, may break the rules of the platform. So there are a variety of options.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it challenging to discuss past events because acknowledging them implies that nude images were taken? So someone reaching out asking for help because they had sent a nude, but the fact of them reaching out might be hard because it might paint a picture that they actually engaged in that activity.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we think is important is when teens reach out to us for this, even adults, we don't judge. Like, there's no judgment on our part. Like, we get it, right? The whole goal here is to get you the help that you need. And in order to get the help that you need, then sometimes you have to fully disclose. And so when you're doing that, say to us or to the police or to here in the province of British Columbia, to the new Intimate Image Protection Service, they are very much survivor. Well, I don't like calling them victims, but survivor based, and they're very good about non-judgment, right? Like, we get it, right? We truly do.
If someone initially refuses to delete explicit images of you but complies after being reported, could they still face repercussions?
There's a possibility, but is it likely? Probably not, because they finally complied with your request, right? So.
Have you observed any changes in the prevalence of sharing child sexual abuse material? If so, how significant have those changes been?
Well, I think personally, we've seen an increase in the production and distribution of child sexual abuse material. So we haven't seen it decreasing. It is actually kind of sad to see how much of this is actually generated by somebody who the child either knows, loves, or trusts. That's what's really sad, like a parent. Or a caregiver, right? So, but the changes that we've seen is we've seen an increase in the production and distribution of it.
I think where we've had positive impact is that in specific schools that we visited, where maybe there is a couple issues with images being shared, but after we inform the cohort of students, like, hey, here are the laws, here are the rules, and such, we've seen that decrease, or at least schools have shared with us that they saw a decrease in that.
I mean, a part of dealing with this, specifically when it comes to nudes or intimate images, or what the old people call, or boomers call, sexting, a lot of it is about education, right? It's getting youth and even adults to understand the legalities behind doing it and what happens if you send it without consent, right? And so once we educate teens in an open and honest way about that, it has a tendency to kind of dampen what was going on specifically on this issue. Does it get rid of it totally? No, but it puts context to what the consequences could be.
Yeah. In what ways is sharing exploitative images comparable to sexual assault?
Yeah, great question. I think that's asked because in our presentation, we quote a study here in Canada that found that those who are survivors of an intimate image that was sent consensually experience the same emotional, psychological, and physical, emotional, psychological trauma, not the physical, but the emotional and psychological, as individuals who were actually survivors of an actual physical assault.
Yeah, so
So,
similar brain activity.
yeah, similar. Not physically, because obviously when it's a physical sexual assault, that's differently. But from an emotional, psychological standpoint, the effects are about identical.
If someone takes photos of me without my consent but keeps them private, could they still face legal consequences?
Well, I think it depends upon what those photos are,
Yeah,
right?
if it's
Like,
just you eating a sandwich. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think there's nothing really there, but if it's, a nude photo, okay, now we got some issues.
Especially if they took it without your consent,
Yeah.
right? If they took it without your consent, it's illegal, right? And even if they're keeping it privately, illegal, right? So, yeah.
Have you ever been involved in the arrest of a hacker?
Not me personally. Have I helped law enforcement who have? Yes.
Yeah.
We've been involved externally in helping law enforcement make those types of arrests.
Yeah, sometimes as online investigators, we collect evidence, we put it in a package, put a nice bow on top, give it to the police going, here's all the hard work done. Now use your powers to actually make an arrest.
Correct. That's a good way to put it.
Do you play Fall Guys? I have. I don't actively play it, but I enjoy when it first came out during the pandemic.
I
think
don't.
Everyone played it.
What game do I play, Brennan?
World of Tanks.
World of Tanks, because I'm a boomer.
If someone hacks my account, can I resolve the issue by deleting the app and creating a new account? Well, I don't really resolve the issue because the hack still happened, right? So you're still letting the hacker do what they're doing. Yes, you can get back onto the platform by making a new account, but all your old stuff on that old account would no longer be accessible to you. So I guess if able, try to recover your account.
Mhm.
That being said,
Mhm.
is that always a guarantee? No, it's not. So yes, that's an option, but I would try to get them out first so you can keep your history and all the hard work that you've built up to that point.
Correct.
Is Facebook Marketplace a secure platform?
I'll take that one. It's no more secure than any other platform. Just understand that in any kind of a marketplace, be it Facebook or some of the others that are out there, there's lots of fraud that goes on these sites, right?
Yeah.
So you got to be really careful, especially never pay anything up front, never provide them with any kind of banking information whatsoever. If you can, when it comes to making those purchases in person, if you can meet in person, try and do it in a place where you're going to decrease risk to you. Like many police departments now offer you the ability that if you're going to buy something online, you can meet at the police department to do the exchange, which greatly decreases fraud and as well as things like robberies from taking place that I know that you wrote an article about, Brandon.
Yes. What steps should I take if I receive threats while gaming? That's an interesting thing. As someone who's been gaming since the online beginning of gaming, are there a lot of angry gamers who say things they don't actually mean they're going to act on, but they're saying pretty this horrible, ugly things? Yes, even though technically it might be breaking the law. I mean, do they actually get arrested? Typically not. Again, you have to make the assessment on, is this someone who you truly do believe is going to act on those threats? And if so, what steps you take, reaching out to family, parents, caregivers, police.
Yeah, we've had a Canadian teen who was arrested for online gaming for doxing other people.
Yep.
Right. And was actually convicted of that as well. But yeah, well, I think it's called gaming toxicity now,
Yep.
right? There's all kinds of things that fall under that category of toxicity. So, but I would agree with what you just said.
Yeah. Does every bad thing someone says, even though technically illegal, do they get arrested?
Yeah.
No. You have to make a judgment call on that.
Mhm.
How can I remove a virus from my device if I don't have the means to pay for assistance, like actually paying for antivirus software? Well, yes, there are some free ones out there, although they're better than nothing. I would recommend working with maybe your family and figuring out, it's usually about $40, $50, $60 a year.
Yeah.
It's just a last line of defense if you are downloading things from non-proper registered places. In case you do download something that maybe you shouldn't have, hopefully it can stop that virus from running.
Right.
So unless you have the technical skill to really find that file and get rid of it and such, it's probably going to be difficult. So look for the free ones, but there are some scammy ones. So use the reliable ones.
Yep.
Is there a risk of being scammed while purchasing in-game currency like V-Bucks?
Yep.
Now, as someone who plays Fortnite, yes. Now, okay, if you buy...
Caveat, right? As long as you buy them on the Fortnite platform, you're going to be okay. But if you're buying it outside of the Fortnite platform, danger, 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 right?
Yeah,
Don't do it.
Buy your V-Bucks from Epic Games, not
exactly.
from other places.
Yeah.
That's usually your go-to sign.
Exactly.
Could a new email account still be vulnerable to hacking if it shares a password with the old account? Yeah, I mean, if the hacker who hacked your original email knows your password, because that's how they got in, you make a new email, but the same old password, they just try it again.
Yeah, like our recommendation is if you're going to create a new email account or any kind of new account because the other one was compromised, new password, right?
Yeah.
Don't use your old passwords, right?
Do you use a green screen for your background? Well, we do have green screens, but our main background is an actual physical set.
Yeah.
We can actually go and touch things.
Yeah, it's like when we move over to the big board, a lot of people think that that's a green screen. It's not. It's a big touchscreen TV that we have, right? We have a green screen. There are times where maybe we're doing a project where we'll use a green screen, but this is our real background behind us, right?
Yeah. Although I have some plans for...
I sure you do.
For more...
Just don't tell mom, right? Remember, she's the quill. She's the money.
Yeah. Is it safe to show your face on YouTube videos on my personal channel? Well, that's going to really depend on the risk assessment for your family. If your family's okay with that, but if they're okay with that and you're doing cool, amazing, wonderful things and not, maybe you're making sure the background isn't anything personal and, you have a dedicated space to do that, where all the information and background is appropriate, then you're probably fine.
Right. We know of some youth that we've worked with, however, where there was a real safety concern about their face being anywhere on the internet. And for somebody, right, from a safety concern, it wasn't in their best interest or the family's best interest to have their face anywhere on the internet. Right?
Yeah. What if a hacker impersonates someone close to me, like a friend or family member?
Yeah, that one can get pretty tricky, especially with new AI. I mean, one of the things I wrote an article on this very issue where a couple of seniors in Canada have been defrauded out of money because they received a phone call from what they believed was one of their nephews in the United States who was down Hawaii on a trip, and they got a phone call saying, "Hey, listen, I just got arrested. I don't have my wallet with me, Grandma. Can you wire me some money to this link so I can give it to the police so I can get out of jail?" But the criminals were using artificial intelligence, right? Because all they need now is a 3-second sound bit of your voice, and they can create a voice synthesizer that now sounds, as I'm speaking, it sounds just like your niece, your nephew, or anybody else. So sometimes you got to be careful, right?
Yeah, I think speaking with your families, I think we have a agreed upon solution that if I'm in trouble needing money, it's okay to use another form of verification.
Correct.
Never trust what I say to you on the phone.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a good example, you could say to somebody, ask them a question that they will only know, like, what's the first car that you ever drove and what color was it?
Yeah, but at the same time, but if that car's on your social network.
But I'm just saying, pick something that is unique and not well known to anybody to confirm that that is the person who you are, right?
And just verify on another communications platform. Most families have more than one way to talk, either via text, phone calling, or email that the hacker probably or scammer doesn't have access to.
Yep.
And that's totally okay in today's world.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, you have to think about using another method to confirm the voice of a family member, but...
Welcome to the AI world, right? Things are changing. AI, there's all kinds of really cool things about it, but there's also some bad things. And like it or not, it's like any other tool. It can be weaponized. And unfortunately, criminal element is figuring out ways to weaponize it, right?
Is it advisable to share my username with others to play games together? Yeah, I mean, if it's a friend from school, I don't see anything wrong with that. If it's some rando who really wants to play with you, okay, now we get a little concerning what's going on here.
Especially if they're asking all kinds of personal questions that they're like, why are you asking me all these personal questions? Like, we just met, dude.
Yeah, but of course, if your username is not your actual full real name, I think, that's even better.
Yeah.
Is YouTube Kids a safe platform for children?
Safer.
Yeah.
right? I would say put an R on the end of safe and say it's safer. Is it completely safe? No, but it's safer.
Yeah. YouTube automatically tries to filter content that's more age appropriate, but there are interesting words you can
I
use that
think
are,
the important word you used there was tries.
yeah, tries. Yes. Are there some people who try to get inappropriate things on there by using words YouTube can't explicitly block? Yes.
Yes.
Do you offer assistance beyond scams and hackers?
Yeah, we take all kinds of issues that we help teens, parents, and adults deal with that they run into online. Yeah, we you name it, we've answered just a whole plethora of concerns that people have connected with us. And if we can't help, we know somebody who can.
Yeah. What recourse do I have if someone uses unauthorized photos of me against my will?
I guess the question is, what are the unauthorized photos? Like there's a real misunderstanding surrounding pictures, right? Like if they're non-sexual, right?
Okay.
Non-intimate images, like is there anything illegal about me taking a picture of you in a public place and using it as I see fit? No, right? Like
Assuming you're not using it for criminal matters.
correct, right? But you know, a lot of people will say, well, you can't take a picture of me. That breaches my privacy. There's no privacy law in place that prevents that from happening, right? Like I can take a picture in a public place and do with it what I want. Now, whatever I do with it, there could be consequences coming my way depending upon how I use it.
Well, if they're peering into your bedroom window with a camera,
Different.
that's different.
That's private, right? That becomes private. Or if they're in a bathroom and they're putting it under the stall and taking a picture there. Although
Yeah.
it's public, it's private, right? So context is everything. But I think that's really important because there are some people still teaching kids that it is illegal for anybody to take a picture of you, right? It violates the Privacy Act. No, it doesn't in Canada, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
enlighten, not frighten through facts, not fear.
Why do hackers demand large sums of money?
Because they start high and work low.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they do. They start at a high amount that they know that you can't pay. And what they do is they slowly whittle it down to the point where all of a sudden now you can pay it. So you're more likely going to pay it, right?
Yeah, that's just class and negotiation.
Exactly.
You never offer the lowest money to begin with.
Okay, Donald Trump.
Wow. Wow.
You're welcome.
Wow. Yeah. It's just, yeah. You go, oh, I can't pay that. I can pay you $1,000. And they'll just accept whatever you can pay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Has anyone on your team previously engaged in hacking?
Yep. My specialty is in the area of human hacking, right? We call it human hacking, social engineering. There's things like technical hacking that can take place. That's kind of more of your bailiwick, right?
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert. I haven't specialized in that area specifically, but I have the basics in order to kind of understand and translate what's happening in that world so we can help people solve issues.
However, we do have one or two resources that we consult with who do and are really good
Yeah.
at that kind of work.
Can individuals be fined for cyberbullying? It depends on what you mean by cyberbullying. Mean and rude? Probably not. Are they breaking the law? Well, certain seriousness of laws will determine if it's criminal offense where you get fined or arrest.
It
So-
could also be civil, right? Where they
Civil?
could be sued for defamation or libel, right? Again, context is everything.
Yeah, bullying is very, what does it mean, right? How might someone obtain my email to send hurtful messages? Well, there's things called data breaches. They happen all the time. And basically, sometimes hackers trying to find flaws in social networks and apps we sign up for. You want to have an account on something, you're probably needing an email. And those emails, not always secure. Some apps and programs sell information like emails to data brokers who it's not impossible to get someone's email address.
Yeah, and one of the ways you can check is we always recommend a free resource. It's called ibeenpwned.com, right?
Yeah.
Where you can plug in your email and it'll search the database to see if your email is being compromised. And then it'll actually tell you what platform it was compromised on, right? And usually it's as a result of, like you say, a data breach.
Yeah. Is discussing sensitive topics like nudity ever uncomfortable for you?
Not for me anymore because I'm a 58-year-old boomer, right? But, you know, it was at the beginning for sure, but not anymore. I mean, it's all about being open and honest with teens and young adults, right? And so it's important. Now, is it a sensitive and uncomfortable topic for teens to hear? Yes. but it's our job as educators to be open and honest with the information. So again, that the young teen or young adult can make an informed decision before they hit that send button, right?
Yeah, I think it makes it easier for us because we talk more about more of like the legal side of things.
Correct.
And that's much easier. We don't really get into the whole family value side of stuff a whole
Correct.
lot because nudity itself is not illegal. And so, that's really up to families and the family values.
Correct.
But we talk more about the legal and safety side of things.
Correct. Yeah, there's other experts out there that talk more about the sex education component, right?
Could individuals share explicit images with me via AirDrop if my device AirDrop feature is enabled?
Yep.
Yep, it has happened. Now, thankfully, Apple and the recent updates have made AirDrop off by default. And if you want to make it open to everybody,
Oh, it's off by default now?
Yeah.
I did not know
If you
that.
want to make it open to everybody, it only allows it for 10 minutes, then it shuts back to nobody.
Get out of
Or
here.
you can limit it to only contacts. So that's always been a feature.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that they just updated. Was that in the new
It's been around for, I think, a year or so now.
Oh, cool.
I
So
can't
it's
remember.
off by default. In order to use it, you got to turn it on. When you do turn it on, it only stays on for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That'll help a lot. I mean, there were a lot of, remember a lot of articles a couple of years ago where people were on public transit and they were on their phones and boop, all of a sudden these dick pics started popping up on their phones and stuff.
Yeah.
From people who found that your AirDrop was open and they were sending these things.
What can I do if my ex shares explicit photos without my consent after a breakup?
Well, number one, it's illegal under the criminal code. That would be the non-consensual distribution of an intimate image. So criminally, civilly, if you're here in British Columbia, you can also now report it to the Intimate Image Protection Act as a violation through the CRT, which is the
Civil Resolution
Resolutions Tribunal, where there could now be a fine assigned, a civil fine now up to $5,000, right? So there's two avenues that you can go after here, criminal and civil here in the province of BC.
And many other provinces have something similar.
Yeah. Ours is just easier.
Yes, most robust.
Yeah. Good word, robust.
What are your thoughts on using Linux as an alternative to Windows for enhanced privacy? Yeah, I think there's been a lot of criticism over Windows over the last decade because there's a lot of information Windows is phoning back home to, meaning that it's sending it back to its server and that you need to have an online account to even run Windows now because they need to collect data and such. So there is a lot of concern around that, and I get it. So yeah, some privacy advocates are using Linux because it doesn't inherently send data back to the Linux company because it's open source. Yeah, does for the average user though, I think I'd be a little more concerned because Linux is not as user friendly. Better today than it was 10 years ago, but it's definitely not mainstream enough, in my opinion. I'm sure we'll get there. Is there an annual White Hatter presentation?
I don't know about annual. I mean, schools have a habit of bringing us in every year. What we can say is our lesson plans, we update them every summer.
Yep.
Right? Like that's what's kind of cool about us at the White Hatter is we stay current as best as we can. What we taught a year ago is not necessarily the same what we teach today. Things change quickly.
Yeah.
And so we stay appraised of that.
And usually we have more than one program at a grade level. So sometimes schools bring us in one program one year, another program another year. It's a different program, and then they just kind of alternate every other year.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what some schools will do.
Yep.
I use Proton VPN's free plan because it's open source. Is that secure to use? Yeah, so Proton VPN, it is a proper paid for VPN, and they do have a free version. Yeah, it's not as good, not as robust, not as data
Not as fast.
usually. But yeah, if you're using a free VPN, but because it's from a proper paid for VPN, then you're going to be fine. Doesn't capping refer to lying rather than capturing?
I'll take that one. Yeah, capping was first brought in to deal with or as a word to describe those who are trying to screen capture people doing things sexually in front of their cameras that they shouldn't be doing. But much like any word, it can have multiple meanings, right? Like it's like when you look up a word in the dictionary, you can have the first meaning, second meaning. Again, context is everything. But in most cases, like when we use it, we're talking about cappers, right?
Yeah.
Who are capping young people for the purposes of sextortion.
Yeah, I think most people especially the current generations, are thinking of capping in terms of lying and such.
Right.
And I think that's how it's more being used today.
Right.
But it has a history.
Its origin.
Yeah. In screen capturing.
Mm-hmm.
Is Discord capable of recording user activity?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Discord blatantly says that the platform is not encrypted. They blatantly say that, and that police can get warrants and such to get evidence, which is partly what Discord has said in terms of legislations that try to limit activities and monitor activities. They go, well, we don't have anything encrypted, so you're free to look. Nothing to hide. So yeah, indeed. They anything you have there, it's on their system and it's not encrypted. Do you believe TikTok is for surveillance purposes?
I'll take that one because I wrote an article on that. No. Could it be? Yes. I mean, TikTok is owned by BitDance, that is basically owned and operated by a Chinese company, and under China law, they have to be able to give access to the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, to have access. However, TikTok says that they don't do that, but how many times have we heard governments and organizations say that to us? So could it be used for surveillance? Sure, it could. Do we believe it is primarily being used for surveillance? No, we don't.
U.S. Patriot Act? Anybody?
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody? What was the TikTok CEO comment in the Senate hearing? North American social media companies haven't had a good history of privacy for its users.
Exactly.
So I mean,
the U.S. Privacy Act, just for people who don't know, or Patriot Act, it basically gives government organizations in the U.S. that have 3 letters: FBI, CIA, DEA, NSA, the ability to search any kind of social media communications without warrant.
Yeah.
Basically, surveillance.
So, I mean, could any country that has a company running a social platform on it, can that be used for surveillance? Possibly. I don't think TikTok would be unique in this equation.
No, I mean, however, the government entities that are saying on government devices, it's probably, especially maybe on devices in which are being used by the FBI, DEA, the RCMP, the Canadian CSIS. Yeah, that would make sense that there is a risk there, so don't do it, right? But on your own personal devices, the risk is low, right?
How long have you been assisting individuals throughout your career?
Well, I was in policing for 30 years. I've now been retired for 38 years, so that's 38 years in total for me.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, interesting, because I've been learning about online safety, digital literacy when I was in basically middle school.
Yeah, and then you also helped me in elementary school when we were doing personal safety training, right?
True. So I'd say most of my life.
Yeah.
Is it concerning that Roblox requires ID verification to enable voice chat? No, not inherently. I think Roblox is doing a right approach. Am I concerned about the data being collected and how it's handled? Of course I am. But in order to use the voice chat feature, you have to verify your ID.
One of the things I would do is if I was going to send in some ID, I would redact some of the more personal information on it, like your address.
Yeah, that's right.
If there's a driver's license number. I mean, I would just send them the government ID, whatever that is, with my purchase, my name, my date of birth, but all the other personal information, I would redact that.
Mm-hmm. Will a new device retain past data and conversation? So if I buy a new device, will it? Well, most of that data is stored in the cloud. So it's not as if it's on the device itself. Now, your pictures, for example, may not be backed to the cloud, but if you buy a new phone, you do a phone port over, then yes.
And there's lots of programs out there that allow forensics on these phones to find stuff that you thought was deleted off the phone, but it's not. It's still on the phone. So yes, it can be in the cloud, but sometimes it's still on the phone. You don't know it's there. Even though you deleted it, it may still be in there.
What role should law enforcement play in combating cyberbullying?
Well, I think that only when it reaches the criminal realm. If it's rude, mean, or disturbing behavior, law enforcement has no role to play in it whatsoever. But once it crosses over into the criminal for things like uttering threats, defamatory libel, all those all those things, then that becomes more of an enforcement standpoint. But just because law enforcement comes into play doesn't necessarily mean somebody's going to be arrested. Maybe the better take is restorative justice approach that law enforcement can help to mediate and push forward.
Can government agencies access text messages?
Patriot Act.
Well, yeah, U.S., there we go.
Yeah.
Typically in Canada, you'll need a warrant.
Except in exigent circumstances, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so can they? Yes, but there's usually some steps for them to do that.
Correct.
Do you enjoy live streaming? Yeah, we really enjoy it. We do. I mean, just because of what we don't just use a laptop webcam.
Yeah.
That's boring.
Right.
Who
And we don't just use one camera. Like we've got like 6 in here.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. And then we got all kinds of special effects that we use. And so, yeah, no, it's kind of cool.
Yeah. We work and we help teach. We also get to play a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We could
Well, you get to play a lot, right? Like I'm the boomer. I just come in and I ask you, how do you work this? And even when it's constantly, how do you do this? How do you do this? Right.
Yeah, I'm constantly adding new features and
It's
whatnot.
kind of cool.
Does browsing incognito still result in data collection? Well, yeah. So your browser doesn't collect your browsing history or accept cookies, but your data that you're transmitting to the websites that you're visiting can still collect that.
Correct. And so does your internet service provider too,
Yeah.
right?
So yes, data still being collected,
So although mom and dad may not see it, the police would, right? So
or whatever website you're visiting would know you're
exactly.
there. Yeah. What are your thoughts on Web3, particularly regarding privacy and decentralization of the environment? You know, we're not there yet. I like the idea of Web3 because there's a big issue with the big platforms like Meta that seems to own everything and everything's in their hands. However, the issue with Web3 is moderation. You know, Meta can have the rules to make sure people don't break the law on their platform.
Right.
With Web3, how do you basically stop someone from committing a crime on there?
And the other thing too is with Web3 and the increasing of encryption, it makes it a lot easier for the bad guys to use it to their advantage. It makes it really difficult for the good guys to hold them accountable.
But it also prevents governments from overreaching, which they have in the past.
Yeah.
With
There's
their
a real yin and yang, right?
Yeah.
Right. Over the issue. Like you can see both parts. Like right now, there's lots of controversy over the fact that Meta and some of the other platforms are now encrypting all their communications in their messaging side of things, which some child protection organizations are going, they're pulling their hair out going, well, how are we going to track these individuals? How are we going to identify them? Right. So there's a real yin and yang push and pull going on over that issue.
But at the same time, these very same governments are like, you got to do more work. Well, legally, if they don't know what's happening, they can't take action.
Exactly.
So it's, what do you want here, governments?
Yeah.
You can't have everything. So
Exactly.
it's definitely, balancing.
Yeah.
How do you feel about spending excessive time online watching YouTube?
Well, you know, there are going to be times where you want a bubble gum, right? Where you've had a tough week and you just want to kind of sit down and just veg, right? I call it bubble gumming. The problem is when you do it every day. Like that's not good for the brain, right? So that's would be my answer. There are times where you can just sit down and binge, right? I call it bubble gumming, right? Kind of thing. But you know, that's not healthy to do every single day.
Mm-hmm. Can comments made on social media posts be traced back to individuals?
A lot of times, yes, it can. Sometimes not, but a lot of times it can be.
What is your opinion on ad blockers? Yeah, it's conflicting for me because yes, who likes ads? But at the same time, ads are what pay for a lot of the free content we enjoy on the internet. So, you know, people oftentimes make their money off the ads that they have on their sites, but blocking it means they make less money. So I am conflicted. But if that's something you wish to use, by all means, ad blockers are a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Can universities detect plagiarism in student work?
You know, they're trying, but AI is making it difficult. Like, I remember that article that was out there where this prof failed a bunch of students because he said that they used ChatGPT to write it. And in the end, it was proven that the students didn't, right?
Yeah.
Like, so it's getting harder and harder and harder now for universities or any educators to detect when AI is being used for the purpose of creating documents. There's still some tells that you can look for, but as AI matures, it makes it harder. That's why I think what you're going to see universities do is to get away from written and to go verbal, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the ways around that. So, but there's no really good detection platform out there. There's lots of companies that say they have it because they want to sell it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think I have not come across anything yet that is 100% reliable.
Yeah, and the issue is if you're using a plagiarism detector and it doesn't give you the back end access in terms of how it came to the conclusion, is that really a good tool to use? Because now you make a claim, you get a rebuttal. How are you going to counteract that? Well, this tool said you did. Okay. How did the tool detect that? I don't know. So yeah, you think that academics would be more, cite your sources, but no.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you felt the impact of your assistance on the teens that you've helped?
Absolutely, we have. I mean, some of the awards that we've won and recognitions were over the fact that we were able to help teens stop the act of suicide. There's a good example. Recently, I worked with a family and a teen who was targeted for sextortion, and in talking with the teen, they actually said to me that they were really close to committing suicide because of it, until they spoke to me and understood that it wasn't as bad as what they led it to believe. So the answer to that question, absolutely. Like, we've had so many positive, like 342 teens that we've helped when it came to suicidal ideations, and just over 310 teens now when it comes to sextortion issues. So a total of over 700 youth now, right? And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
How can I distinguish between scam calls and legitimate calls from my bank and other important entities? Well, that's hard.
It's hard. So one of the things I would say is that as soon as you get that call, hang up and say, okay, I'll phone your direct line, and then phone back your bank on a line that you know, and talk to them directly and say, hey, listen, I just got a call from the bank. Was that you guys? No. Good thing I talked to you guys, right? Yeah. So especially, again, now that AI, like, all these people need are a 3-second sound clip, and they can sound like anybody, right? Like there was a guy, I think it was in Taiwan, I think it was, right, where he was in the financial world, and he lost like was 20 or 30 million dollars from an AI scheme where he thought he was talking to a bunch of people in a group in a huge meeting, and it was all AI generated, but he didn't know. And it sounded like the people who he knew looked like him, sounded like him. So he did exactly what they said. And it turned out it was an organized crime use of AI to bilk him out of tens of millions of dollars. Right. So
what are your thoughts on VPN blockers? Like at school, for example? I mean, sure, they can try.
It's a cat and mouse game, right?
Yeah.
That's what happens, right? So they identify one VPN service, so now you just go over to another VPN service, right? It becomes this cat and mouse game.
Yeah, I think any environment where people get to bring in their own devices, you lose all control. Now, if it's a school-owned device and school-owned policies on a school network, okay, I think VPN blockers, because that's a device you don't own, if they want to have rules and policies, then fine. But your own personal device, good luck.
And the other issue is that if you got a VPN on your Wi-Fi in the school, what's to stop the kids from now switching over to their data?
Yeah, true.
Right? To access the stuff that you want to block.
Well, yeah. Well, here in Canada, data's still.
Yeah, that's true.
US, though.
Yeah, you can get
cheap.
some pretty good plans on Canada where you can get a lot of data. It costs you a little bit of money, but still it's almost unlimited, but you pay for it.
Yeah. We need more providers. More competition. What qualifications are required for employment with the White Hatter?
Well, presently we're not looking for any employees right now. Who knows? The time is coming soon when I'm probably going to retire. And so as a result of that, Brandon will probably be looking for other people. But I think, number one, a person who has good digital literacy and maturity. Number two, has got a strong background in technology. Number three, somebody who's probably gone on to post-secondary education to get some form of education on this topic. Number four, has got the ability to communicate with people effectively. And number five, loves social media and technology. I mean, those are kind of five that I can nail off the top of my head. What do you think?
Yeah, precisely. Even if someone is not going to college, university, as long as they can, demonstrate they know how to understand.
For sure.
They understand how research is conducted. University can really help you with that, but you understand, the evidence, rules of evidence and such.
And it's interesting to see how post-secondary educational facilities are now kind of finally catching on that this is a real industry now, and then offering programs like BCIT is a really good example of that, right? In Vancouver, that now offer programs on cybersecurity and coding and all that kind of stuff that I highly recommend to young people who are interested in getting a job within the field.
Yeah. And those are our questions from February. Thank you all for sticking with us, and we'll answer more questions next month. We'll see you then.
See you, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.